Hey everybody, my name is Camille. Welcome to my channel. Here I post videos about getting into medical school, staying in medical school, and what happens after medical school. Right now, I'm in the middle of my journey. I was accepted to an osteopathic medical school, and I will begin this summer in actually a couple of weeks, which I'm so... oh my gosh. Anyways, I wanted to come on here and make a video today about the things that you should consider when applying to medical school. I have my handy dandy list here and I will be reading off of it, okay? So these are not in any particular order, however, there's some things that I think should be towards the top of your list when considering medical school, and I will make a note of that, okay? So everybody, I think one of the top things that you should consider when applying to medical school is its location. Where do you see yourself practicing medicine, as well as where do you think you would learn best? Would you like to go into a rural area because that's where you're from? Do you like the urban area because you know that while you're studying, you also want some fun things to do while not studying? Do you like a more suburban area? Do you like the idea of not being in a high cost of living city, but also you're not quite sure if you want to be in a rural area? These are some of the things that you should consider, because at the end of the day, you're going to be spending more or less 4 years in this location, so you want to make sure it's a good fit for you. Next, I have the cost of living, which kind of ties into my location point, because if you don't necessarily have to spend as much money to live in a city and you still can get the quality education in another location, I would consider adding this to your list, because at the end of the day, you do have to take out student loans if you are not fortunate enough to have some other way of funding your medical school. So keep this in mind, because it's very different cost of living in New York City versus Wisconsin, as well as if you want a smaller city like a Cleveland or a Knoxville versus living in Arkansas. These are some of the things that you should consider, because not all city or rural or suburban area are the same, so you want to make sure that you take this into consideration when applying to medical schools or choosing to apply to medical schools. Next, you want to look at the cost of tuition, and I won't even go that far into this and why I think this is something you should consider. A lot of people nowadays, well, I guess within the past couple of weeks, I've looked to see where people have gotten accepted and why they chose to apply, as well as confirm their acceptance to a certain school, and sometimes people made their final decision based on dollar signs. Next, you might want to consider choosing a school based on its specialty. Do a lot of people on the faculty do some type of medicine that you're interested in? There are schools specifically that are geared more towards research. There are schools like an Osteopathic Medical School that is more geared towards primary care. So if that is something that you're interested in, which would include OBGYN, family medicine, internal medicine, maybe that should be some type of school that you do consider, and make sure that, it's the right fit for you. Next, you want to look to see, as I said before, if that school's faculty or the school's mission or purpose has some type of root within research. If you have done research in the past and that's part of your extracurriculars that you're going to apply with to your school, maybe if you liked it that much and you would like to pursue that, check and see if your school does research. Maybe they have an MD or a DO dual program with a PhD. If that's of interest to you, you could do that, but you don't have to go and commit minimum 7 years to do a PhD dual program. You can consider doing a master's degree while in school, because that's also an option. I know some schools do certificates as well, so if anything, that might help you pick one school over another school when you are choosing. Next, I think you should consider the student to faculty ratio. Although this might be a little difficult to find, you can message other students who do go to the school, as well as admissions committees, to see what the student faculty relationship is. A lot of medical schools now have sister schools where the school's class, like incoming class as well as past classes, are ranked together and grouped together. So how does that look? Say a school has a sister school in another state. How does classes that are taught in the opposite location affect students at the other location, if that makes any sense? This is something that's pretty interesting for me because I know the way I study the best, so this actually might be something that you might want to consider based on your study habits, and if you need an in-person teacher, if you do better with faculty mentorship, these are things that you should consider. Next, you want to look at the demographic of the faculty. For me, because of the color of my skin, I wanted to make sure that there are people who looked like me amongst faculty so I could have mentors as well as people to ask like pretty serious questions. In one of my interviews, I talked to a Black physician who was a faculty member at the school. He was able to talk to me about the experiences of his Black mentee students, and I felt that that was really, really important for me to even be able to talk to someone about that, because I wanted to know how I would fit in not only at the school but in the surrounding area. Next, you want to see if the medical school you're applying to has a relationship with a greater hospital system. This could help you during your clinical years when you do have to rotate in different specialties. And if anything, some schools have a special relationship with the greater hospital system. But you are able to have connections and establish a relationship prior to deciding where you want to spend your residency, and this might be an added perk to look into. Next, you have to look at the school's match rates. You don't want to be going to an osteopathic or an allopathic medical school that doesn't have such great match rates, but at the end of the day, I also would play the devil's advocate and say that even if your school doesn't have the highest match scores, which might in part have to do with the school's curriculum, also in part has to do with you. You are the one who are studying, it's your future, you have to take this into account. So if anything, I wouldn't rate this in one of the top 3 choices of what to consider when going to medical school, but I would consider this in at least the top 5 minimum. Next, this might actually take some work to do, and it's probably not found directly on the school website. You might have to go on LinkedIn or something, but look into what students at the school have publications attached to their resume that they've done within that 4-year period of medical school. This will help you just have an overall more robust and well-versed application when applying to residencies in the future. I think that this is really, really important because sometimes if you would like to get into those higher ranked specialties, or I guess the more select specialties like dermatology, for example, you want to show that you have some other things in your portfolio. Next, and finally, I would like to talk about clinical settings. Clinical settings have to do with your 3rd and 4th year rotations. You want to make sure that this school has pretty good clinical rotation locations. I've heard of schools that do rotations at clinics with like 50 beds or even less than that. You want to make sure you're getting the best education that you can and the best exposure to actual patient care as possible. So I would talk to an admissions committee member and see if they can direct you to talk with the person who does the clinical rotation location selection, as well as keeping that relationship intact. I know schools are always looking to add more or maybe take some locations away from this list. So if anything, look into this while you're considering medical schools, because sometimes schools have relationships with locations, hospital locations, or clinical rotation locations where you can be close to home. So if anything, you do your 2 first years of medical school at the school, and then your third and fourth year, potentially you can move back home, save money with those types of costs. So that's something to consider. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know I threw a bunch of stuff out there. Please feel free to subscribe to my channel. I hope to be posting more videos that hopefully can help you. I know some people tend to apply to multiple schools, meaning more than, not just 2, but more than 30 schools when applying to medical school, and hopefully this list has either helped you realize that you could apply to more schools if you are towards the lower end, or decrease the amount of schools you do apply to. I know there's a financial cost when applying to medical school, so to keep this in mind, to kind of help you construct your list of where to apply, is really why I made this video, and I hope it helped. So without further ado, again, feel free to subscribe, like this video, share it with anyone who you think might benefit from this, and stay tuned for more videos.